Hi, everyone. Welcome to Office Hours. If you're watching on YouTube, you can find out more about what we do at officehours.global. Our first hour is general discussion about video and media and audio and graphics production. And our second hour is usually something we want to spend a little bit more time on. And today we're going to talk about Midjourney. We know that there's 6 is coming out somewhere in the future, but there's some new tools that I don't think we've talked about for a little while. So we're going to kind of give you an update of some of the stuff we've been playing with, and then we'll do the same thing when 6 comes out. But 5.3, I don't think we've covered, and so we're going to talk about it a little bit today and talk about what you can do with it. I think it's important that we keep up with all of these newfangled tools so that we can use them in production and also just know where they're at. If you've got questions, go ahead and throw those in. We may stop the second hour a little early because the Zoom event is starting at 9, and there's some pre-show stuff that we want to see. So get questions in early for Midjourney, because we're not going to try to stretch it out in any way, shape, or form, because we may, again, have a little bit of a truncated show because of that. If you've got general questions, of course, you can use this little QR code here, or just go to askofficehours.com and throw those, throw your questions in there, and then we'll move them in via the QR code. We'll move them into the main show. Let's go ahead and jump into the questions. Mitch, what do we have?
Thank you, Alex. First in, Paul Wallace in Austin, Texas, asking, how do you manage Adobe licensing for multiple products on multiple operating systems, and how easy or hard is it to move Adobe apps around?
John?
So Adobe comes with this manager application that manages all your apps that you install and the updates and all those things. I run it across Windows and Macintosh, no problem. I can open up two iterations of each one of the applications separately, right? Or simultaneously, I can't remember.
Yeah, go ahead, Mitchell.
Yes, you are correct, John. Two versions of the license. I used to call it 2 seats, and Chris corrected me and said, just for you, not for you and somebody else. So you can have 2 seats open at any time. I've got 5 computers in this room, and only 2 of them at a time can run Adobe. So that's the way I use it, and it's easy.
Courtney?
Well, they must have changed it since I licensed my Adobe, or I purchased Adobe outright before they did a license. Yearly license sign-up, subscription-based. But so I have Photoshop 7, which I paid like $800 for back in the late 90s, early 2000s. And I put it on every one of my machines because I go from computer to computer. I have probably about 30 laptops and about, 40 or 50 PCs of various sizes, including a lot of these little ones. And I want to have it available to touch up stuff on whatever computer I am on. And their licensing, previously, the only way you could do it is you had to sign on to one that has it installed, deactivate it, then go on another one that it's installed in, then activate it on that one, and then it's like, now, which one do I have it activated out of my 40 PCs? Which one is it activated on? I don't remember. And you'd have to log into the one that it was activated on to log off of it before you could log into one on another. And it just became unmanageable. So now I just use my one copy that isn't. They don't check. 7.1 was the last version of Photoshop where they didn't check in with the mothership every time to have licensing. So I use that on all my machines. I'm the only person that uses it. I'm not selling it or giving it away to anyone else, so technically I'm not voiding it, but at least it's there and working on any machine that I pick up that I own.
Good, Mitchell.
Yeah, Courtney's using a legit version of it. That's a legit version to do with version 7. Unfortunately, I own all of the Adobe products way back when, before the subscription nonsense started. And the problem is you need to use the subscription in order to have the ability to integrate all the products back and forth. So you won't get a newer version of it unless you go subscription. It's the only way to do it.
And go, Chris.
Yeah, what Courtney's talking about is the past. Actually, Courtney, they have a really good solution for it currently. What they have, they call it Cloud for Business or Cloud for Teams, whatever, and they'll just ask you to subscribe 40 times, one for each machine. It's really simple.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I will admit that it does reduce the amount of interest I have in some of the wider Adobe products, because I'm just like, oh, that'd be something I'd have to deal with. But I do have Photoshop, and I use the Substance tools. The Substance tools still are really great for prepping things for USDZ. So I use some of the Substance tools there, and I have, so I pay for that subscription, which is actually pretty expensive. And then I pay for the Photoshop subscription. And I have to admit that the new generative AI stuff in Photoshop is the first thing that I felt like, wow, this is a reason that I should have been upgrading all this time. Like, everything in between, I was kind of like I still wish I could go back to Illustrator 6. Next question.
From Douglas Carmichael, when working with churches or other charitable organizations, how do you change your planning or budgeting strategy compared to the for-profit world?
It's what it costs to do it. I mean, I think for the most part, I mean, oftentimes we try to find with nonprofits a way to, oftentimes trade off, like we'd like to get some PR for working with you and we can do it for a little less, or we can do it, there's a bunch of different things we can do to kind of help them work through that. And so that's one of the things that we've done to try to kind of lower the impact. A well-run nonprofit, when working with external folks, is going to pay the same amount of money as everybody else. But most of them have a little trouble doing that. And I think it's also a mindset. They're used to having a lot of free labor. Typically, what happens with a nonprofit is you have a handful of people getting a salary, and then you have a lot of people that are volunteering for that. And so what you want to do is really have great people at the center of that you are paying. Because they're the ones that are kind of guiding and helping everybody else go. The mistake that some nonprofits make is not having really highly skilled folks in the center and not paying them very much. And then it really reduces the effectiveness of the entire volunteer staff. So it's kind of an odd, juxtaposition there. Courtney?
Yeah, I charge charitable organizations the same amount unless, and if it's something that I believe in and they're asking me to do it for free or something, I'll say, well, that's hard to make it, tax issues erupt with that. And if it's something I really believe in, I'll say, well, go ahead and I'll do it at my regular price, so I'm not diluting my price to everyone else, and you pay me, and I'll sign my check over as a donation to the company. That way, bookkeeping-wise, it shows up as a actual, I'll write you a check as a charitable donation. But trust me, a lot of churches, there's some of the best setups and the most expensive equipment, and the executives at a lot of those nonprofits are still making a pretty good salary, so they can afford to pay, your regular salary along the way. And if it's something you want to donate to, like I said, write them a check after you get paid.
Next question.
Shetjen Flo Yersvold from Norway. I'm conducting an intro course to Chat GPT soon, and I'm looking for inspiration. What are some of the panel's most creative uses of Chat GPT?
John?
When I do my presentation on Chat GPT, I'll do a poem, I'll do a business contract, lyrics. I'll do a translation into at least one different language, and then I show a hallucination. So I have a question that I know that it gets wrong. And the crowd loves that when I do it and get it to say something wrong.
Courtney?
I found it's great for writing children's books. So if you've got kids or grandkids, you can have it write a custom children's book and involve all the kids' names and the pets from the family, and just give it a scenario and let it go, and it'll write about a three-page story that has a beginning, middle, end, and conflict and resolution, and it almost always has a happy ending. And then you can get Midjourney or DALL-E to generate some illustrations for it. So you can generate and even print out a little children's book very quickly, in just a matter of a few minutes.
Yeah, I did have to do some stories as a test, and they were actually not too bad. I said that I asked ChatGPT to write a romantic comedy about snails that was as if it was directed by Michael Bay, and it was. And it had these two snails that were in a classroom, and this slightly geeky snail like the cool girl, but there was this kind of macho snail who then dared him to a race, and the two of them had to race inside of the little aquarium that's inside the classroom, and it was not going to win an Oscar, but it was as good as most Saturday morning cartoons. I think this is what the writers are so worried about. I was like, I could fill a lot of time. Like if you're just trying to fill time, I could see why the people would be concerned. But I think that being able to tell, you can do things like that. Like tell me a story about two snails, a romantic comedy about two snails and a class that are in a classroom, but directed by Michael Bay, and it'll give you something that is there. I also like, if you're showing things that are kind of fun, fortune cookies as Klingons, or like fortune cookies for Klingons, or for Star Trek or Star Wars or Romulans, and it will just give me 10 of these, and it'll just give you 10 questions or 10 fortune cookies that are very much like in the line of that culture inside of Star Trek, which I find to be fascinating. And then I ask it a lot of things. So one of the big thing that I do when I'm that I really focus on is source, method, destination, which is, you are this. I tell it what it is. I want you to do this, and I want you to point it at this. So it's I've said this before on some of the shows, but I want, you are Richard Feynman, explain quantum mechanics to a fifth grader, or explain a bit, explain Bitcoin to a fifth grader, or something like that. And all of these things, if it knows where it's coming from, what it's doing, and where it's going, it's actually generally pretty good at what it does. And so, and then finally, cook a lot of meals that I've had Chat GPT. I have it all. My Chat GPT Osh soup is all cut up and about to go into the pot sometime today. So, but I just said I want Osh soup that fills 11 liters, that makes 11 liters of soup, and out came a recipe, and I made a couple adjustments, but nothing major, and I make it every couple weeks. Next question.
Ronnie Hofsoy from Tromsø, Norway, asking, Zoomtopia kicks off today. Which session are you most interested in, and why?
I think one of the things that we're really hoping to do is have someone go over. I think that there's going to be kind of a production expo that hopefully we'll be able to take a look at what they have there to show off some of the production tools that are there. I don't know how much of what we do is going to be in the keynote. That's a whole nother conversation. So, but I think that I think it'll be interesting to see what comes out. I think Zoom is working on a bunch of stuff, so we'll keep you up to date, and hopefully get somebody. Maybe we have a couple people there. Get them to come in from the floor, maybe into after hours. We'll do some announcements if that happens. Next question.
Peter Rosado from Las Vegas, Nevada. Thoughts? The evolution of theater space use continues as spoken about in office hours, and I think it involves Taylor Swift.
Yeah, go ahead, Courtney.
Yeah, I looked at the article. It really talks about them just doing concert films, editing them and then releasing them in theaters, which have been around for a long time. It's not anything really new. I mean, The Band and Woodstock, and there have been a lot of concert films produced. But these, for their individual tours, they're doing a film for each of their individual tours and then releasing it in theaters. It might be interesting. Now, these aren't live streamed of their tours. That might dilute their live audience. This is something else entirely. It's a cut down version of their performances at their live shows. So it could generate a following from the people that even saw the live shows want to go see the film from the live show. So it generates a broader audience. It gives something to put out there in theaters while the actors are on strike. It keeps people in the seats. How much more money it's going to return. I don't think they're going to garner the kind of ticket prices that they would at a concert, but, it's a little additional revenue that comes in, and it keeps the theaters in business to sell a lot of their popcorn,
Yeah, I think that over the next 4 to 5 years, you're going to see a huge transition to more live events in theaters because, and these aren't live, as Courtney said. I actually don't think that the live events would a live stream of I think a live stream of a concert they wouldn't do, but them doing a live event before their tour, for instance, would probably make no impact. Number one is if they did it right before their tour started, they will have already sold all the tickets because they sell those a long time in advance. And the other thing is that I don't think that people would go. I think these two artists would just double dip. They'd have people go to that show. Huge number of people that are going to the movies have already seen them in concert. I was talking to a friend of mine last week. He said his wife and daughter went to see they spent a lot of money to go see the show, and they immediately bought tickets to see the movie. So I think that there's not much crossover there. Go ahead, Nigel.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think what you're seeing here is the most successful tour of all time, which I think is the Eras tour, which is going to make more money than the next 2 or 3 combined. Have worked out a way how to double dip, as you say, for 2 ways. One, for people to repeat the experience, and you go to a concert for the experience, for being present. Most of us, where we sit, we can't see the artists anyway. We're watching the screens, but you're going for the experience. So you get a chance to repeat and relive that experience. And second of all, these huge concerts, the prices, as we know, are incredible for the tickets. So what they're doing is monetizing people who can't afford that and giving them the opportunity at $20 or whatever the price of the ticket is, or even less than that potentially, to get some of that experience. So while it's a much lesser experience, it actually opens it up to another audience. And you might find that it makes an incredible increase. I think the Eras Tour's made over $1 billion. It'll be interesting to know, is this 5 million on top of that? Is this 10 million on top of this? Could this be 100 million on top of it if it's done worldwide? And if it's 100 million, that's an immeasurable impact.
75 million so far, pre-sold.
Well,
no,
there you go. That's a good increase.
Go ahead, Chris.
I think this is the idea of a tour and then a concert, a concert film about that. I mean, it's a well used thing. I mean, Paul McGuinness has been a master of this, going back to live at the what was it, Red Rocks, when U2 did the Red Rocks concert and then they released the film about it. Rattle and Hum was a whole movie about Joshua Tree. This gets done. The one that I always reference is the Boston tour from 2001, and the French tour from 2015 after the terrorist bombing or shooting rather in Paris. When a month later, U2 did a great show there, and the concert films are a different experience. It's the same thing that all those people are going and standing in line and watching a wonderful show from one angle. But if you wait and get the movie, you get it from 20 angles, directed by a masterful director. Both businesses are very lucrative. Maybe, I think that the concert is more lucrative, but I don't think it's a problem showing it later. You're not going to take away from the live. The people that want to see it live are going to go. They don't care. They don't want to wait 6-8 months for the film to come out.
Yeah, a lot of it has to do with number of tickets and number of seats. So, the arenas are mostly limited to about 70,000 seats. AMC and Regal and everybody, you combine those and you're getting closer to 6 million seats. It depends on what penetration that you can get into that market. So let's say if you had a virtual venue that was 1 million seats thick and they were charging $25, that's $25 million in one night. That is twice what Taylor Swift's making every night. And so the thing is the math there is so big that this will, and here's the other thing. Right now, for the first 6 weeks of a film release, the theaters make money on popcorn. So there's, they make money on a long run, but on short runs, they make very little money because the studios keep most of it. And so they can continue to do popcorn, but the math starts to change if the theaters are able to keep more of the money than they could from a film release. And so, and the reality is that, I know a lot of people say it's better to see a film with a lot of other people who are responding to the film, but very few people I know actually think that. For the most part, most people are just annoyed by everyone eating and talking and doing all the things that they do at a theater. And so, paying to go to a VOD that you can have at home and your $1,500 80-inch screen TV with a surround bar, is going to make less and less sense every year because those screens are going to keep on getting bigger and higher resolution. The surround is going to get better, and it's just not going to make sense to go. Especially at the prices that they're charging now, even just for parking. It cost me for 4 people. It cost me $150 to go to with popcorn and drinks and parking and the tickets and everything else. It's not that is not going to keep being successful. But you do want to be around a lot of people if you're going to a show. Watching a concert at home feels a little pathetic to me. There's something about being able to be at a live event and feel like you're interacting with other people that are into it. So I think that there's a huge value in what we're doing. I think this is just the beginning. These films are the easiest way to distribute it. But I think that there's going to be a lot. I think you'll see a lot more in this area. Next question.
Michael Weber from Foxborough, Massachusetts says, I have an ATEM Constellation, X32 Console, and a web presenter 4K. What is the best way to feed a mix minus into the web presenter, which only has SDI inputs, an SDI audio embed device, and will an embedder eliminate any existing audio on that SDI feed?
Go, Jason.
I'll take the last question first. Will an embedder eliminate any audio? Yeah, absolutely. If you set it to embed over, then yes, it will. I assume you're using the web presenter for taking a call, basically for Skype as a webcam going back out. In which case, the process is pretty simple. I would use the ATEM to do it. And if you had a mix minus, on the X32. You would put the mix minus onto a bus, and then from the bus, your return could either be an embedder, or you can just throw it into another SDI channel natively, and then just set that as the output for the input to the web presenter.
Yeah, and I believe that, and I haven't used it this way because we tend to not. We tend to not do what you're kind of trying to do. We tend to have another thing that's doing the embedding, and it goes out and everything else. And what's going back to them, we manage all in the audio chain. So all in the X32. We don't have the audio going into the Constellation. If you're doing that, there are settings in the Constellation to set up mix minus for every input. So as those folks are coming in on input, there is a mix minus setting inside of your control panel that you could use for that. So if you're doing all the audio inside of that, you should be able to just use the ATEM for that. We tend to, when we have these sources come in, we're using Dante, virtual sound card from a series of Mac Minis. We bring them into the X32. We do all the mix minuses there. And we let Zoom do all the mix minuses inside the conversation. So it depends on how you're setting this all up. So the mix minus here between us is being handled by Zoom. Our raw output is going out to a mix. That is then being embedded for the show and brought back in. So our systems are a little bit different. If we're doing it back and forth to a system, we build those mix minuses in our mixer. But if you're doing all video sources with embedded audio, you should be able to do a mix minus. You can set those mix minuses inside the ATEM to handle those individual inputs. Quick reminder, of course, that you can ask questions throughout the hour. You can see this little QR code here. You can also go to askofficehours.com and ask those questions, and we'll throw them in. So you don't need to log in. If you are logged in, you can vote on those questions and let us know what order you're in. You can chat with others. But if you just want to ask a question, go ahead and do that. And a reminder that if you go into Discord and under the Alex announcements, you'll see a link to the test flight for the radio app. The radio app now has a link directly to be able to ask questions from there as well. And you can ask them 24/7. Right now is great, but you can also ask them 24/7 from that from the QR code from this URL, askofficehours.com, and we will bring them in the morning as we get ready for the show. Next question.
Paul Wallace from Austin, Texas, asking, Google yesterday launched Chromebooks Plus, which will be made by Acer, Asus, HP, and Lenovo with AI camera and video conferencing control panel. Please discuss.
Go ahead, John.
Not a fan of any of the Chromebooks. They have limited life. These are i3s. These are crippled machines. They've got maybe 1 year if you're getting a free one from school, but still you're limiting your child's growth.
Sorry, go ahead, Nigel.
Yeah, so let's give a bit of context here. So I think the PC shipments are around 200 million a year. It's really hard to know exactly because 21 and 22 were spike years, COVID years, and lots of people replaced their machines, but they're going to settle around about 50 or 60 million units a quarter. If you look at Chromebooks, in comparison to that, they're probably going to be about 20 million units a year. So they're about 10% of the PC market. By the way, PC market spiked at over 300 million units a year. That's the impact of iPads and tablets and stuff on it. So they're about 10% of the PC market, but they're still 20 million units. And they're important to Google because they drive an operating system that drives part of an ecosystem. And so that they'll always be there, and they'll always be a very good way for low-cost educational organizations that need simple access to online technologies, but can't afford the cost not only of the PC, but of the maintenance and management of the PCs, which is, it's often multiple the actual cost of acquiring the PCs. So while they are limited function, there will be a market for them for a number of reasons.
Go ahead, Courtney.
Yeah, I agree with Nigel. They're doing a really strong push. I just saw a commercial yesterday on network TV about pushing it to schools, stating that Chromebooks are the only system that have been immune to ransomware. Apparently, I didn't know this, but that's what they're promoting in their commercials for school use. And because they're for school use, an i3 is probably fine for composing stuff. I wouldn't buy one as my main daily driver or home computer. But for school use, it's perfect because, they're cheap enough that even the disadvantaged students or the school districts that aren't really rich can afford to buy them for a lot of their students. And those books that are handed down from those laptops or tablets that are handed down from student to student over a couple of semesters or years, get trashed or get stolen. So you don't want to be giving them $2,000 iPads or $1,000 iPads to each student if they're going to be, stolen or broken or, put into backpacks and crushed over the years. So they're designed to be slightly disposable, and they live in the Google ecosystem, which is they have a really good educational system designed for collaboration. And now that they're adding video conferencing and a little more capable processors for doing all that processing of video and communications, I think it's a win for them, I think.
In my opinion, home computers, I'm not going to group which one, but PCs and Mac OS, iOS, Linux, Chrome OS. So anyway, that's what you're giving to kids. So
sometimes you need a Datsun to crash as a crash car.
Technically, that's a Yugo. Anyway, according to Midjourney. So the issue is that what Google did really well was they went to ask teachers, what are you doing right now? And then they got what the teachers wanted right now, not teachers who don't do a lot of this or don't look forward on it, just looks at what they're doing in their classroom. And then Google poured an enormous amount of concrete into the classroom of this is the way it's always going to work. They did a great job at solving the problems of the day that they started to push them in, but it's very hard to move forward now because they've created this substandard system where kids just learn how to type and build bad pictures. When the thing is that what they have to do is be creative in the future. They have to be able to create things and do things and be able to communicate effectively. The iPads, by the way, are about $300 for education. So they're a little bit more than the Chromebooks, but not much. I think Apple did blow it in not creating good fleet management when it began. But I think that what we've done now is just poured concrete into the past. And so schools now are embedded into that. They would have, they very much would, the kids could be a lot more creative, communicate a lot more effectively, do a lot more with their machines. Other than just doing homework and being able to file things. So building little bots that will be replaced by Chat GPT, Google Chromebooks are perfect for that, is to build people who are, build students who are going to graduate and then be replaced by a machine. For things that you actually have to be creative at and be able to do something, to be able to think outside the box, the iPads would have been a much better choice. And the iPads are marginally more expensive, but here in California, we instead of buying iPads, we've decided to pay for horrible lunches for kids who can already afford it, and we're going to give it to all of them instead of buying technology that would actually move them forward. So it's and I get the penny pinching process, but there was always money to do what needed to be done, and we made a lot of bad choices there. Next question.
Adam Finesilver from Los Angeles, California asks, I've got an M2 Mac Mini Pro that I just set up a few months ago, clean install, not migrated. Is it still recommended to wipe this machine before installing Sonoma? I'm hoping Alex doesn't respond with, you know what I'm going to say.
Go ahead, Jason.
I feel like I want to be the barbershop quartet here. It just depends. In this case, it really just depends on what you're doing. If you're doing this right, and I assume you mean a Mac Mini Studio, most of what you're doing is it would come in from the App Store. Your browser and all your important stuff is going to sync. You can very quickly pull on and off your, documents to documents, desktop to desktop, et cetera, with your folder structure. So I guess it depends on what you're doing that is off the beaten path. If what you're doing is off the beaten path, you shouldn't be using a brand new browser that came out last week. And if it is for some reason necessary, and you only did it a few months ago, why not just do it? But no, you don't have to.
Again, you're asking the wrong person, because I probably still wait for a couple more months, let everything settle. If you're not doing anything major, then you don't have a lot of production apps. Then I think you could probably go ahead and throw things in. Chris will throw them and do it either way. But I would say I'd probably just wait, and then I would probably do a clean install, to make that work. Yeah, good, Chris.
Yeah, there's the right way to do it, and then there's the way that's short-term efficient, potentially long-term nightmare. I will tell you, I have not done a clean install of an OS in maybe 5 OSs. I just do the update thing. I'm working at a pretty high level. I'm not making any major motion pictures, but I depend on my machines to work, and they do. So there's always a gamble. It's kind of like the always convert everything to ProRes debate that Alex and I always have. It has to be ProRes. Yeah, it might be better if it's ProRes, but 90% of the time it's not a problem, and I save a ton of transcoding time, by only transcoding when it does become a problem. Alex is smirking. Go ahead, smirk away. Let's put Alex on screen.
I'm just saying that when it doesn't go well, it goes really bad.
When it doesn't go well, it's bad. But I'm telling you from experience, most of the time, it's okay. And I save a ton of transcoding time. When it's a problem, it's like, I bet you I'm going to pull an Alex and I'll transcode the footage and then I move past it. But the other 90% of the time, I didn't have to do that.
Yeah, but the problem is that if you don't know why it's not working, suddenly you just have your software crashing. What?
It's usually an Alex. It's like, it's probably an Alex thing. Yeah, so then I do it. Yeah, but most of the time, I don't need to. I'm a Ferengi in this business. I'm trying to make a profit. I'm trying to work efficiently and quickly. Boom.
Well, and again, when it comes to transcoding, like, it's not like I sit around waiting for transcodes. Someone sends me something, I have a machine that just sits there, and we just throw it in there and just cook it. And I just, I don't think about it. Like, by the time I see it, it's not like I usually have to grab onto it the moment it shows up.
Spare machines.
Oh yeah, spare machines.
I work on the same machine all day long.
Yeah. Spare machines are amazing. Go ahead, Jason.
This is like saying I know a third of my potential upgrades always end in tragedy. I just don't know which third.
Next question.
Jonas Dottel from Stuttgart, Germany. It looks like most of the sessions are hidden at Zoomtopia for non-US-based customers. Or is it everyone only seeing 20 sessions?
I haven't really looked at that deeply. I don't expect Zoom to do a lot of announcements that would pertain to us. So I didn't look that much at the sessions about what we're doing there. I kind of want to see the pre-show, and I want to see the a little bit of the opening remarks. But I'm mostly interested in what is on the expo floor, and seeing what they might have for broadcasters and so on and so forth. I think that I don't think Zoom's focus is really as much on the broadcast area as it has been in the past, and so I haven't worried about that much. I will say that I know you're trying to get in from Germany. I can tell you, if there's one country that isn't going to work for many, many things, it's Germany. As someone who streamed, it's a constant problem. There's a lot of IP things in Germany that are different than the rest of the country. So I don't know if it's all of Europe or the rest of the world, or just Germany that can't get it, because it could be that there's music playing in the background or something like that, and they're just afraid of it getting shut off or Germany happens to be, when I've done a lot of streams, Germany's been extremely restrictive in what we can and can't do. And so as a result, we oftentimes commented out Germany's servers because we just couldn't manage what we had to do with the government. So I don't know if that's still the case or not. I haven't had to do that for a while. But it may not be all. It'd be interesting for people to let us know in the comments as to whether they can see more sessions. But I can tell you that has been an issue in the past for a lot of different events that I've worked on, where Germany doesn't get the videos because there's a bunch of restrictions, and it's not so much that those videos would cross over those restrictions, but a lot of companies have decided that it wasn't. They just got frustrated with the ins and outs of it and decided to stop figuring it out. I don't know if it's gotten better, but it has been a problem in the past. Next question.
Craig Kadoki in Toronto, Canada. New article about an AI imposter of Tom Hanks doing dental ads. What are your thoughts?
Go, John.
Don't believe anything you see or hear or read now, moving forward from now. This I haven't seen this particular one with Tom Hanks, but there's a big one with Mr. Beast where you've won an iPhone and send us $10 for shipping. So especially with the elections coming up next year, there's going to be a ton of this stuff coming.
Courtney.
Well, the stuff he's talking about are actual scams, email things you'll get maybe. But as far as advertising goes, we've had these for years. Celebrity voice impersonated. How many times you've heard that on radio commercials? They've been doing that for years. Especially with the local or regional advertisers, local TV stations will produce spots and they'll hire celebrity lookalikes, and they'll usually run a disclaimer at the bottom, celebrities impersonated, to get them off the hook legally. So this isn't new. The only new thing is that the images, rather than hiring some guy who looks like Tom Cruise, they get a deep fake of Tom Cruise, and somewhere they'll put a little disclaimer in there, or not call him Tom Cruise. They'll just call it, Fred Johnson, and it'll be a synthetic actor. So celebrities are going to have a problem with this. They might be able to sue, but most of the time the people they're suing is a local TV station who doesn't have deep pockets. Regular advertising agencies avoid this kind of stuff. Real national ad campaigns really avoid this stuff unless they have the cooperation of the celebrity to create the stuff.
Go ahead, Mitchell.
Courtney, you mean that might not be Tom Selleck trying to sell me a reverse mortgage?
I don't
That
I
is
don't know.
Tom Selleck.
Yeah. I haven't seen the actual ad, so it's hard to I don't know how good it actually is. But I will agree that you probably should not believe anything you're looking at. It's important to. I think that's actually very healthy for people. I think we need to get past the idea. I mean, I think that there was a great. We were doing the interview that we did last week on Gray Matter. The guest was talking about that. So he goes, we keep on talking about the good old days when we had control of the, when media was something you could trust. And he goes, that's never really been the case. There was a lot of, it's not like we should have been able to trust the media sometime in the future. It was just that it was centralized in a handful of hands that were, manufacturing, belief systems inside of that. So I think that I think it's important that what I really think is healthy here is the destruction of believing what you see and hear, and without, a lot of evidence. I think that it's important for any area for people not to believe what they see the first time they see it. There are usually many extenuating circumstances and many, things that happen. I've been involved in enough cases, legal cases, where when you really dig into them, what seemed obvious becomes very confusing and non-obvious, or downright wrong in cases that we thought we knew everything about, and I entered those cases thinking that the person is one way and exited them going, oh no, this is completely different than that. And so I think that I think that it's important that we as a society really start to focus like jurors, like responsible jurors of, I need to see all the evidence. I need to see it from a couple of different angles. I need to understand what's actually happening and critically analyze what we're looking at, not just go, well, I saw a video of this or that. That doesn't mean anything. And I think that it's important. It hasn't ever really meant anything, or it hasn't ever told the whole story. But now it's telling no story, which I think is actually pretty healthy. Go ahead, John.
One of the pieces of legislation that's being considered is a piece of technology that's invented by DeepMind out of Google, where they have digital encrypted watermarks for anything generated, whether it's GPT or it's image generation or video generation, where it will have a digital watermark, so it will be denoted as generated.
Nigel?
Yeah, I've been through two situations that included bomb blasts. One, I was in a newsroom for the bomb blast that nearly killed Mrs. Thatcher in Brighton. 50 years ago, probably it is now. And the other, we lived downtown Boston during the Boston bombing. And while I don't mean that I had a bad experience. Lots of people have been through worse. What I had was a close-up view of A, how newsrooms, and B, how the media view a story that is happening in front of them that they don't understand. And trust me, they're no smarter than the rest of us. And what they don't know, they make up. They try and produce a good story, so they will fill in gaps where they don't have them. They won't correct themselves. They won't reverse themselves. So I think Alex said, I think the most important lesson of the modern media world, which is triangulate, find multiple ways of looking at the same story, and just assume everybody is trying to sell you something.
Courtney?
Yeah, one of the issues that's coming up in the SAG negotiations with the producers is a problem with AI, in that, the technology has gotten so good that the deep fake replacements can be used, and actors, when they sign a contract to do a movie, are kind of starting to worry about the fact that, in post-production, they got paid for the movie, they're starring in the movie, their name's in the movie. And let's say the director in post-production decides he wants to rewrite a scene. They won't reshoot it. They'll just put the new dialogue in with the synthesized voice of the actor and the synthesized image of the actor and create a new scene, or maybe even just change a few lines to change the direction of the script or something. And so they'll use the artificially generated voice of the actor and image of the actor moving their lips in sync. It's gotten so good that it's difficult to tell when it's a synthetic actor. And the actor now is faced with the fact that their performance is being generated by a computer, and maybe it's not as good as they thought it could be. They may still be getting paid for the movie, but the contractors are going to have to reflect that either the producer has or does not have the right to make changes to the performance that is generated that they've already paid for. So that's kind of a sticking issue with AI and how it can be, kind of perverted. And the problem that actors are going to be facing, and they say, well, I didn't act that scene. That was all AI. They could disclaim it later.
Go ahead, Mitchell.
Yeah, at a completely different angle, I think it's ultimately going to come up to the consumer to decide if they can trust the message that they're getting, because nobody else is in their court. You just have to decide on your own. So maybe there's room for an app that says, I trust this so much. This is 90% accurate, or this is 20% accurate, or this is a deep fake. Maybe there needs to be some kind of indicator that says, make your own decision.
Be manipulated. That would be manipulated. What's important. It's important that no one believes anything. Like that you say, I got to look at all these things, or I'm not going to make a decision. And people have to get that there's no safe place. There never has been. And as someone who has worked in hundreds of events that have been reported on, exactly what Nigel was talking about, I can tell you that I've seen the manipulation. I've seen just inaccurate reporting. I've been part of the manipulation. So the thing is that I can tell you some of it was calculated, some of it is just like, we're managing the conversation. We're managing how we want this to occur for people. And that can be, it can be there's a lot of subtle things that you can do. Like one of the things that I have done in the past is I have a very high level event. I put my cameras on isolated risers, that are weighted with very high end cameras. And I let the rest of the press share a riser with the photographers, and then I give them a feed. I give them I give them the press feed, both video and audio. The video and audio that come out of my system it doesn't look anything different because my operator is still sitting on that shared riser, but my center camera is 4 inches from the riser on a weighted setup with a Super 35 sensor. I put it exactly where I want it, and every other camera angle looks like this, and mine is rock solid. That looks like a film, And now, which camera are they going to take? From when they see both, they see their own press feed coming in over their little live view, and they see mine going into the press pull over the switch. Which one are they going to take? They're going to take mine. And then I control, at this point, as the producer, I control the conversation. I control what they're looking at. I control that process. Now, I mostly do it because I just want the quality of it to be there. I can't give everybody the perfect shot. But you can see how that's a very subtle thing to do, because you're just giving everybody something, but it still taking control of the conversation there, and that's the kind of stuff that happens all the time. And it's nothing. There's nothing. If you're really manipulating it, that's one thing. But I think but you just have to understand that things can be subtly guided down a path, and that's just one. If you take 50 people and you shoot with a wide angle shot, it looks like nobody showed up. If you shoot with a longer angle and lift the camera up by about a foot, it'll look like there's a huge crowd around the same person and the same protest or the same, gathering. And so all of those things that's not lying, but it's definitely not telling the truth. Go ahead, Jason.
So that's how they get a dozen extras on NCIS to look like a crowd. No, I've always wondered. Scott versus Harris, 2007 Supreme Court decision. There was a really neat experiment about that car chase for video as evidence. Take a look at it.
Another quick reminder that, of course, you can ask questions throughout the first hour about Midjourney or about general things. You can ask 24/7. You can use askofficehours.com or use that little QR code. Next question.
Douglas Carmichaels, has anyone switched from a pair of monitors, 2x24-inch or 27-inch, to a single ultra-wide solution?
Go ahead, Jason.
No, and I'll tell you why. Most ultra-wide monitors are low resolution and they're terrible quality.
There are some that are pretty good quality. I think the LGs look pretty nice. Some of the Samsungs look nice. I just like to have the flexibility of putting the monitors where I want them. Go ahead, Mitchell.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think the quality is good. And if it's curved, like a lot of these ultra-wide ones, can you really get a circle in there somewhere and have it be perfectly a circle?
Yeah, go ahead, Courtney.
Yeah, I don't like the curved monitors either, mainly because of the reflection. They reflect, they're a parabolic curve, so they reflect light from any angle back off the screen, and as you move your head, the reflection moves in the opposite direction that you'd think it move, and it makes it disorienting for me. So I don't like anything that has any kind of reflectivity screen, any kind of highly reflective screen on a curved surface. It just is a no for me.
Next question.
Joe Kidd from Bay Area, California. Have any members of the panel experimented with a powered Thunderbolt hub with iOS 17 on handsets with a USB controller?
Go, Jason.
Yeah, I've used the, what is it? I've got it right here. OWC Thunderbolt Go Dock, and it worked pretty nicely.
Next question.
Next one in is for me. How would you rate the OWC Envoy Pro FX SSD external drive for an older Mac Pro running Premiere Pro, no Thunderbolt?
Go, Jason.
That's an excellent drive. The issue that I would be concerned about is if you don't actually have USB 3.2 Generation 2, that it might not be getting enough voltage to actually do what it's supposed to be doing.
Go ahead, Mitchell.
Yeah, my use case is an old Power Mac cheese grater with a Sonnet card in it doing 3.0. So I'm sure that would be good. But
I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that if I were you.
All right.
You're going to have to give up the cheese grater. That's all I'm saying. You're going to have to. I know they're going to pry it out of your cold dead hands, but
I keep telling it, one more year, just one more year.
There's a lot of computers that have come out since the cheese grater that. Pretty awesome. They're pretty awesome. Like, I'm just saying that I have a cheese grater in the house. I'm going to put it back here as a museum piece in my wall of depreciation.
Welcome to 2023, Mitch.
But it's part of my wall of depreciation museum, but not as a actual used case. I guess
the emotionally attachment is not a good case.
One of the upsides of everyone was offloading stuff from 3210. One of the upsides is I now have an iMac that does 24p. Go ahead, John.
I have two cheese graters, Mitch. They're sitting right here. They hold up my coffee table. They're perfect for that. And
they held up my Pelican case when I was there. It was perfect.
My M1 is as fast and as useful as my $7,000 iMac Pro is. So they're jumping with an iMac Pro, especially when the 3's coming out next year.
Good, Mitchell.
Well, all things considered, looking at the new Mac Pro and looking at the Ultra Studio, and to be honest with you, I don't think the Mac the Mac Pro is the way to go. I think the Ultra Studio is. So that's a bit of an incentive to go with that. Spend $4,000 instead of $10,000.
Next question.
Next question from Peter Belbin in Houston, Texas. For those wanting an all-in-one NDI multicam, switcher, streamer, PTZ, this looks like it could bring hardware stability to NDI use cases. What are your thoughts?
Go ahead, Courtney.
Well, I took a look at it. It's $34.95. It's got a built-in screen. It's got audio. It doesn't have a lot of inputs on it. Of course, it's designed for NDI, so it just has one Ethernet jack, one HDMI in, and a couple of USB 3s. It has unbalanced audio ins and outs and some mic ins and a tally lights. That's all it's got as far as I/O goes on it. And it is out of stock. So if you want to try it out, and that's at the manufacturer's website, so they may not have any more.
It looks like a really interesting, I mean, when you're looking for something as a simple pipeline, I think that it could be interesting, especially combined with some of the Netgear stuff and being able to plug that in. It could be a nice, quick stand-up way to stand things up. It could be interesting. Hopefully we'll be able to see more of it or even get a test unit. Next question.
Jay Scott from Mississippi asking, thoughts on selling AI stock images. Is it worth it? And what is a good platform to use it for selling?
John?
I don't think you can sell them to. I know you can't sell them to Adobe or what's the other big one, because they have to be copyrighted. You can't copyright any generated art.
Yeah, I think that that's pretty complicated. I don't believe that you can really claim copyright against AI. I think that it's actually generating something based on learning and so on and so forth. But I also don't think you can claim copyright for AI. So I think that it's in this world, and people say, well, why would you make the image? Well, because I'm doing the number one reason I use Midjourney, which we're about to talk about here in a second, is to do presentation images or do funny images that I send out to people, or do, like I made images for my family last year of Santa Claus for Christmas. And each one of them was customized to my family's, interests, and what they do. And so, that kind of stuff, it works great. Funny things that you send out, it works great. Things that you tweet out, presentation graphics, those are great because you don't have to copyright them. And I think that I think that it's a pretty sandy place to build a house if you're trying to put copyright on top of your AI. Yeah, go ahead, Courtney.
Yeah, it's not a very good business model because the thing that you're licensing is really convenience, not the actual images itself, because you probably don't have the right to copyright those since they're AI generated. So plus that anybody can, buy your selection of AI stock images and make copies of it and sell it to all their friends because, hey, it's not copyrighted. So it doesn't look for a good business model, and plus people can generate them themselves and more custom. They can create a more custom generated image that suits what they actually need it for than to look through tons of AI stock photos to find what represents what they need,
I do think that for the moment, prompt engineering as a service for folks who are looking for images for their presentations or other things like that, there could be a business there where they're paying a certain amount, $10 an image or something, where they're giving you a description like, this is what I want, and you're doing that for them. Because I will say that it is a skill, and it is something that you have to really understand how to get what you want out of it. We'll talk a little bit about that in the second hour, but there is something there that you could probably charge for, that you're charging basically for your time to produce those for people. I don't know if the problem with what you really want is stock to pay when you're not around, and that I think would be hard. Next question.
Andre Dole in Berlin. Thinking about a GPT-4 account for our company, can I purchase one license and share the access with colleagues? Your thoughts?
Go ahead, John.
Certainly a violation of their T's and C's on OpenAI. However, you can use Bing, and Bing is running 4.0 in their web browser, so use that for free.
Yeah, and I think, and they're using 4. Now, we'll talk about it in the second hour. We'll talk a little bit about Chat GPT as well as Midjourney, because I got a question for John. Next question.
Funsak Dorji for Dharamshala, India. Hi, panels. Asking for a friend, should we go with an XR18 or a Zoom F6 as his audio gear for his live streaming kit?
Go, Jason.
That's a strange combination. What I'm thinking is that the XR18 is a rack-mounted, small, compact digital mixer, and the Zoom is basically an on-site recorder that also mixes. So it depends pretty heavily on what you're trying to do. All things being even, and we got the space for it, the XR18 is pretty great, but I've never used it for recording.
Go ahead. Courtney?
Yeah, the XR18 has a iPad or a tablet interface for it, but so does the Zoom F6. So if you're going to be recording in the field a lot, rather than just for a stock podcasting setup where it's going to be sitting in a rack somewhere and you're never going to go anywhere, then I'd use the F6 if you're going to find production in the field, because it's better used for field use, and it supports time code recording. Well, I don't think the XR18 does.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the F6 is a great field recorder. I would get the XR18 because I'd have a lot more flexibility of what I can do. So there's just a lot more I/O, a lot more flexibility to build a more complex event. I find I have a skill in that I can fill up most mixers with something. Like that tends to happen pretty quickly. Next question.
Next one in from Kajit Fla. Shitten Flo Yusvold from Tromsø. What smart home gadgets would the panel recommend? I have had all my light bulbs replaced with Phillips Hues so far.
Go ahead, Nigel.
Well, I think you've done the first thing I would do, which is sort out my lighting control. And it's more than just bulbs. It's about lighting control. But I would tell you, avoid the gadget. I know a strange place to say this. Avoid the gadget and think about the experience. How do you use your home? Who lives in your home? What do you do with it? And look to automate the things you do most frequently rather than the gadgets that are easiest or sexiest to buy. The second thing I would do, and I know I'm a broken record on this, is I would pick one control system. If you're into the G system, use the G system. If you're into HomeKit, pick HomeKit. Pick one and stick with it and get devices that work with that. Otherwise, you're creating yourselves an integration nightmare.
Go ahead, John.
I've been doing home automation since X10 modules. Courtney, when did those come out? In the 60s or something? The only thing that I can recommend with good conscience is the Lutron switches that I have. They're bulletproof. They've been working for years and years and years.
Courtney?
Yeah, I replaced all my X10s when the AC got so noisy that they wouldn't work anymore. But yeah, I use the Google Home and Alexa. I'm against what Nigel was saying, going with one version, because sometimes one will do it and the other won't. And all my TVs are enabled with smart controls that interface with all the voice assistants, so I can just turn it on, tell it to tune to a different channel, switch to a different input, go off after 30 minutes. It's really handy to have to control TVs, especially in the bedroom or your workroom, using a voice assistant like Alexa or the Google Home.
Go ahead, Chris.
I'm going to side with Nigel about picking a platform and sticking with it. I'm doing everything in HomeKit, and one of the things that I've been enjoying is the combination of Eufy video cameras. They work great with the HomeKit world. And the way you can tie them into an Apple TV. And again, apologize, this is a very Apple-centric answer. One of the things that's really nice is you can pick which cameras you want to remind you, or when they see motion, it's like, hey, somebody's in your front yard. Hey, my mother is trying to get out of bed and she might need some assistance down the hall. And it'll pop up as a picture-in-picture when I'm watching something on Apple TV. And I know that from a viewing experience, that's annoying, but when it comes to taking care of my mom, it's actually quite handy. I really like that feature. It's something I've been playing with a lot lately.
Super quick, Jason.
Lutron is completely bulletproof. HomeKit is my choice.
Quick reminder that tomorrow, we're going to be talking to Midjourney here in just a second. Tomorrow, we'll have Halrek is going to be joining us to talk about the Type R remote production console. It's pretty exciting. This is just a box that just does mixing. And you can remote into it. So CalRec will be showing. Rob Lewis will be here from CalRec to talk about that. On Thursday, we'll be talking about the iPhone, how to shoot. It's I know when the email went out TBD, but we'll talk about iPhone video, how to shoot it, how to color correct it, how to deal with log, how to connect hard drives to your phone, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Friday, we're going to talk about cabling. How do we store cables? How do we manage cables? How do we pick cables, build cables, and how do we run cables? So we'll be talking about that on Friday. Of course, Saturday and Sunday. Saturday is a weekend. We do a lot of testing on Saturday, so stay tuned for that. And Sunday is introspection. And now let's go ahead and jump into the second hour. Welcome back to the second hour, and we're going to be talking a little bit about Midjourney and a little bit about Chat GPT. I think that, again, as doing what we do, I think it's important for us to constantly be tracking this stuff and seeing what it can do, what it can't do, all of those things, because I think that, it's evolving very, very quickly. And again, when it comes to Midjourney, there's a couple features in there that I don't know if I think we've talked to as a question, but I don't think that we've really talked to it. Spent, in this case, probably a half an hour or so on it, because we and we have new versions coming out, but I think that it's important to see what it's doing and how it's evolving down that path. And so we're going to answer any questions that you have today, and we'll show a couple things. I'll show a little bit more of that car. The cars that I showed in the first hour were part of me trying to get Midjourney to do something, and I couldn't get it to do it. Then I finally figured out a way. I woke up this morning going, I know exactly how to get it to do what I needed to do. And I'll talk about how to negotiate with Midjourney to get some of those things out. I'm going to go ahead and let John talk a little bit about some of the new features, both that we have out now, as well as some of the stuff that we expect to be coming in 6. Go ahead, John.
First, we gather here today to celebrate the life of prompt engineering. I think prompt engineering is dying. I wrote a big article on LinkedIn on prompt engineering. It reminds me of writing regular expressions on a Unix command window. And Midjourney has announced that they're going to move, when they move to 6, it's going to be all web-based interface. And so a lot of the switches that you see on prompts will all be embedded into the GUI.
So yeah, but I mean, there's prompt engineering, but there's also thinking about how to ask for something, right? I mean, there's the prompts.
It's a conversation that you're having with all of the prompt. Everything after the conversation will be embedded in the GUI.
And so you're saying that there'll be, so as we go into the future, the things that say like 16
aspect ratio,
right,
all of those switches will all be built into the GUI.
But I still think that one of the things that's going to continue to be important is how you ask for things. I mean, I think that we find that conversation, the languaging that you use. I mean, I think that the prompt engineering of some basic stuff that we put in, I completely agree with you that wants to be button, not there. But I think that we say a lot, or I've said a lot for a long time. If it's not what you know, it's how well you Google. And it's how you ask Google for things that you get things. And that hasn't changed for a decade or more, where, it's how you phrase. Yeah, Chris is only 2 decades. But how you phrase things and how you talk about it. We talked a little bit about this in the first hour with when I talked to Chat GPT, it hallucinated all the time until I realized that I needed to give it a source, a method, and a target, or goal. And if I gave it those 3 things, it was accurate most of the time, and still not all the time. I still had to check on it. And I'm not going to, create a federal case around anything that Chat GPT gives me. But as an exploration device, I found that it became much more useful once I started to do that. And so, a couple things that I'm going to kind of scroll through a couple things here as we go here to kind of show you. I think that I have. Let me see here. Show you the many trials and tribulations of me trying to get something out. So I'll give you an example of this, and then we could kind of talk through it. Someone was arguing with me on Twitter. This is what I use, Midjourney for. Someone's arguing with me, and I want to build an illustration. That illustration that I showed you earlier was the illustration I was trying to build, which is like this is the problem. And so I do this, and I do a lot of Chat GPT. I mean, not Chat GPT. Oh, sometimes I use Chat GPT to build the images inside of Midjourney. So I tell Chat GPT, this is what I want. And then Chat GPT gives me this like paragraph of stuff to put into Midjourney, and I get more detail out of it. Anyway, but if we look at this is how it began. And if I go to, let me see if I can go down to, let's see. So what I said here is I want a racetrack with a Yugo next to a muscle car. And so I got 2 muscle cars, and I just couldn't, it was like there was, I couldn't get them to go. I was like, no, I want a glam lighting, shot. And there's a couple things in here that you'll see here, race, muscle car, glam lighting, shot. And I oftentimes will give it lenses, what kind of light, style, National Geographic, and I give it my aspect ratio. And so you see me starting to work with these muscle cars, trying to, okay, now I want a Yugo hatchback because it kept on giving me 2 muscle cars. Then I got 2 Yugos. And then I got, then I said I wanted it to be next to a Ferrari car because it was doing something else. And then I got kind of, this was really, I thought this was great. This was like, it's like an M3, but a Yugo. And the hallucinations that it has are kind of fun and kind of frustrating. So I kept on asking for things, and I dropped out the racetrack part. I just said I wanted it. So now I start getting them all over the place. And these are lots of different versions of Yugos. Like if you bred a Yugo with a BMW, you would get this, and so, all of these are kind of fun to watch. Then I tried to do Range Rover. I thought maybe that would make it better, but it did not. And so one of the things that I realized is that I could use one of the new features. Oh, this, by the way, there was someone who was posting this yesterday about DALL-E, and I took exactly what Chase put into his system for DALL-E and put it into here. And this was just a children's coloring book. I think that Courtney was talking about this, but a turtle playing with fish. And here, these are 4 options, for that. But this was something that was built for DALL-E. I just threw it into Midjourney to see what it would produce, and that's what it produced there. But when you're talking about building a story that might be a coloring book, very quickly, these are kind of amazing as far as what it can put together in seconds. Here's a close up of one of those images. As you could build an entire coloring book for your kids very quickly. Will it be as good as someone who did it by hand? Probably not, but it's something you can do in seconds. Now here's so then what I did here is I said, give me a racetrack. I realized I could separate this out, and this is one of the newer features. This is 5.3. This isn't 5, not 6. Put the Yugo on the right of the frame, and then I gave it all the National Geographic and AR and style and everything else. So it still didn't get most of what I wanted except for one shot. So here's my Yugo little race car here. So I took that shot, and you can see it. Now this is where a bunch of the 5.3 stuff starts to come out. So you can see very strong, very subtle, but more importantly, very region. So here with very region, you can actually select it. I'll show this in a second. I'll do it here. So we'll do a very region. Well, and I can also, we talked about this, I think, in the past, but you can zoom out a couple, up to 2x. You can also go to the right. So one of the things I did here is you'll see that I wanted to pan to the right. So I created an opening here. So if I wanted to composite something in, I just pan to the right and tell it what I want to put into that area. So I just said pan right here. I didn't tell it to do anything at this point. So here's an open area. So if you wanted to composite something into the racetrack that you did, you can basically say pan over, which I think is kind of a fascinating thing to do. And then I asked it for a Ferrari, and I didn't select it right. Let me see if I can, let's see if we can do this here. So it didn't do anything in this one here because I just, I did Ferrari 308, and then I said sports car sitting next to it. And I still got nothing, like it was like, and then I realized I needed to say, and then I said man walking. This is where things start to hallucinate. Like it didn't really quite figure out what to do with this. This is not walking, and this is not a man, and this is something else that's there. So this is the negotiation. I'm giving you kind of the raw view of the negotiation that occurs as you start to go through it. And then I finally got to a point where I said, I said add. I didn't say just Ferrari, but I said add Ferrari sports car on a track. And still didn't do it for 2 of these, but then it started adding the Ferraris onto the track next to it. So now I'm getting closer to it. And then I said, add the Ferrari. I had to just do it again here. So you can see that now it's got this Ferrari sitting next to the Yugo, which is mostly what I wanted. But then I told it to I took this one and I said I want to zoom out 1.5x, and what I got is, actually I want to zoom out. I want to pan over. Sorry, pan over here. I did a 1.5x as well, but I wanted to pan over. So when I panned over, what I thought was really interesting is it then added more cars. I was like, and you want some more cars, and what I can do here, what I could do here, we'll try it. I could say empty track, add an empty track to it. So for instance, if I wanted to do that again, I can click on it here. We'll get to the bottom here. So here is the situation here. So I made these ones here, but I could say, okay, I want to, here I could say, I want to pan right, but I want to add empty track. We'll see what happens. We'll start thinking for a little while we talk. And then the other thing I could do is, you can go in here and say, I want, let's see, vary region. So this is where you have vary region here. And I can go in here and I can say, I can select this. We'll just start with this. This could, because I'm cutting over them, this may not turn out well, but we'll try it anyway. And I'll say add storm clouds with, and I have not tried this. So this is just me just seeing let's see what happens. Add storm clouds with lightning. All right, we'll try that. So, but you can select certain areas and then make requests of it. So here this is me adding the empty track. It kind of ignored me, not completely, but there's empty track next to the Ferrari. Here's, see, this is what happens when you cut off the top. There we go. So, so here we have, I said add empty track. It kind of gave me an empty track, but it still hasn't. But when you think about what it's doing here, it's still kind of amazing. That it has this little track here, I think, and then you have this, it added all these stands, the motion blur, everything else all the way down the side here, that's there. Here is the add lightning. It got pretty excited about the lightning. This is gotten a little out of control. This one's on fire now. It's been kind of lit up. You can also see that it also, because this is what I'm always careful about when I ask for something new in the image, is I'm going over my subject. A lot of times it will start to, it's now, the subject is now part of the game. Oh, this is a really cool Yugo. If you think about it, like these little race car Yugos is kind of fun. But you can, a lot of times what I end up doing is going back and adding, changing, this is an iteration. And when I get into something that I'm trying to produce, I may build hundreds of these images to get exactly what I want, which all happens very quickly. I mean, I can, in 15 minutes, when you think about what it would take to do concept work, out of this, it would be quite a thing. But the thing that was really added, there's a couple other things, but there's this idea of being able to vary the level of that you're varying, the zoom in and zoom out, or the zoom outs, of being able to create something. So I can have this image here and just say, I just want to zoom out 2x. And now it's going to make some stuff up. It's just going to zoom out 2x and make more up that's around it. And then, if you look at, while we're waiting for that, we can hit settings.
Alex, have you seen the zoom out animations?
I've done some. So I've done powers of 10 shot. So what I do with that, I don't think I have an example that's ready to go. But the one of the things that I have that I've done inside of those animations are powers of 10 shots, where I took a seal on an iceberg. I don't know why. I just decided that was going to be what I was going to do. Zoomed out 10 times, and then what I did is it's on a Mac break, I think, when we were talking about it. And I then stack every image on top of the other ones, so I scale them all and I stack them all on top. So you can just keep on pushing into that image. It works pretty well. You don't get the parallax, but it's like you're zooming in. It's not like you're moving in. So here you can see that I did a 2x backup. So I just had it back up and give me more frames, more frame, in it, which is kind of an amazing. Again, it's seamless in the area that the image that you had in the center is exactly what it was before. It just simply built around that. to make that actually work. Go ahead, Courtney.
Yes, but does it know enough about a Yugo? If you ask it to show it on lap 23, it'll have the headlight hanging out and the door missing and maybe the hood up.
Well, let's find out. So let's see here. So if I let's see if I can have this set up correctly. Let's see. Let's go back to this, and I go over here. Let's say, imagine you go on a racetrack after many laps with missing, what is it, one light? Well,
I was just wondering if Midjourney was smart enough to
no, it won't know that. But you have to be a little more. You have to talk to a little bit more than that.
The quality of the Yugo,
the Yugo on the racetrack after many laps.
Have it smoking.
One light.
Have it smoking.
One light hanging out. A broken broken door mirror. Bellowing smoke from the back. And then what I usually do is I'll go up here and grab some of my suffixes. This is where I add all this stuff and then I go, okay, I want that, right?
Yeah.
Copy that.
So in the new web interface, you're saying all those suffixes that tell it the camera size and
well, some of it will be. I mean, some of it you'll still add because, are they going to put a button in for an icon D? And maybe, and different people will do different things with it as well. So we'll give that a shot. So we'll say, boom. So now it's working. So we'll see what happens there. It takes a little bit for it to think about it. But and I have this one. I haven't used turbo mode. I don't know how expensive turbo mode is. So it is. I'm sure it's much faster. But and I have I never run out of.
I thought you had the highest subscription.
I do, but
turbo,
the highest subscription still has a limit. It's not unlimited. It's limited to a certain amount of server. This looks promising. I don't know if I don't see if it got the hanging light. Maybe the hanging light, maybe it needs to be in the front. Let's see here, So we have,
maybe it doesn't understand the physics.
Yeah, it looks like dust being stirred up by the.
Yeah, I know. It looks like it kind of got dust coming out of the back of it, but it's this one's probably the closest to like, and then you can say, okay, well, give me the full size of this. Let's see. So we'll get a full size version of this. Now, this is where we can play with this and see what happens. I don't know if it'll work or not, but we can say very region.
I think it has a family in the back.
Yeah, does it? Yeah, it does. What about the whole family? All right. And anyway, but you can do. Let's see. Let's select this area right here and say add racing number
6.
Or crash damage.
6.
Yes.
Right.
Or 5 for the Mach 5.
Or 53 for Herbie.
Okay.
All right. I will make it 5. Number 5 for the Mach 5. Hold on. All right. See what it does here.
Has it gotten better with letters and numbers? Because
you can ask it now in the regenerative. You can tell it to put something in there, and it will.
It'll actually do real words.
I have had it put in real words. It won't do it in the first pass. It kind of is doing it. I don't know. It may still be hallucinating here. Hold on. I don't know I think we're going to get a racing number. I don't know if we're going to get a 5 out of it. Let's see. I haven't quite. Yeah, it's just like, and then I will put a number on the side, kind of. And here's another one that kind of did. So this is where you can negotiate. Now, this is also a place where Photoshop does a better job. So what you can do is you can take this image into Photoshop using the new beta and just circle that and say, give me a 5.
It's actually not beta anymore.
Oh, it's not beta. That's right.
Yeah, it's out of beta.
Photoshop 2024.
Yeah. So anyway, hopefully that there you go. There's some of the new bits and pieces that are available. It's and again, you can see how I might say you might be, your project might be spinning its wheels and you cut to that image in your presentation, and it's a funny image that I got to tell you, adding a bunch of really funny, like the other ones are like in the style of Pixar, is a great one to just make images that you use in your presentations. It's a lot of fun. Courtney, do you have anything else to add?
I was just going to say I saw a news story recently where DALL-E 3, which is now out, is able to do words. It doesn't do strange hallucinatory words and letters. It does actual words and letters.
So, John, let me know. I heard that they did that on purpose. That the words are scrambled on purpose.
I was told that they did it to thwart copyright trademark infringement.
Yeah. Go ahead, Chris.
So yesterday I was working with a producer, and have we talked about Kubrick? Kubrick. Apparently, it is another Midjourney sort of type tool that creates stuff. We were using it to create. She was trying to create some green screen plates for a video we were working on, and I ended up just calling John. I said, John, can you hop into this Zoom meeting? So my experience with Midjourney is call John. But the executive producer had pitched in the style of Wes Craven, and somebody elbowed her and said, no, Wes Anderson. Oh yeah, Wes Anderson. Two different things. And so we wanted some backgrounds for this guy talking, like a forced perspective, very center frame, Wes Anderson-y. And John we added the phrase in the style of Wes Anderson. I gotta say, it did a really good job.
Yeah, I've done ones. One of my favorite artists is Ivan Durrell, and I've done things where I said, like, give me a Star Wars poster in the style of Ivan Durrell, and they just look amazing. Because Ivan, and if you weren't an Ivan Durrell aficionado, you'd probably look at them and go, did he do some of the Star Wars stuff? It very much feels like that. It's kind of a and this is the kind of stuff that I don't know why it looked. Oh. Then this is what happens when you spell it the wrong way. So I was I wanted to show this idea of what I do for fun things, and so this is I said I wanted a confused businessman with glasses over a plain white background, but I misspelled plain because I was typing too fast, or it autofilled. So I spelled it Plane.
You got a lot of white planes behind it.
You got, instead of a plain white background, I got a plane behind him the whole time. But if you look at the quality of these renders, I mean, I didn't say head to toe. I didn't say all the other things that I normally do. But you can see how you get these great, and then what happens is you start to build from those, what those look like. For presentations, it's pretty fun. It adds a little bit of levity. You'll get to some point and suddenly you'll be like, see somebody's, see some fun image. And what's interesting about it is it's, a lot of times you get into the situation where there's a stock art that's really good and everybody has it and it's shown up all over the place. And you're doing stock art that looks really fun and nobody has it except for you, in your presentation. So I do think that the low cost stock market is dead. There's no reason to, we're not there yet, but within the next year or two, there will be no reason to buy inexpensive stock art, to do this stuff. And in some cases, expensive stock art to do this stuff. The advantage that it might be is to be able to not have to worry about copyright. So if you're buying it from Getty or something like that, you don't have to worry about that. Next question. Can't hear you, Mitch.
You okay, Mitch? I can take it over. He's having some internet problems.
We got it back. Sorry.
You got it? Okay.
It cycled all the way through. Okay, coming in, Paul Wallace from Austin, Texas. Is Midjourney still accessed via Discord? What's the best way to access it, and what OS and platform?
John?
So you just saw Alex. Alex was in Discord showing us all that stuff. You can also access all of your pictures via the web now. They've added that within the last 12 months. So they're moving. Version 6 is moving into their website. So if I log in, I can actually get to all the images I've ever created. Yeah.
Oh, that'd be really useful because I have some ones that are early. I had another one. I can't remember. I'll have to go back and look at it. That I misspelled something when I wrote it, and it just created this series of incredible images that I thought we should turn into a book. And
all your stuff and all your prompts are in the website.
Oh man, I got to check that out.
It's great. It's way faster. We're in my Midjourney servers in my Rocket site, and so I've got Sky and a bunch of other people in there, and it's hard to find my stuff in there.
Yeah.
And you go to the website, you can find your stuff way easier. So version 6 moving to the web, Paul, and so then it's going to be a lot easier, and a lot of the switches will be built into the GUI.
Next question.
Paul Wallace from Austin, Texas. What does the full Midjourney process look like from conception of the idea to the finished product? And how long does it take for you? I know there's a certain amount of cleanup that has to be done. Is any of it done without the use of AI?
Yeah, so I'm you kind of saw me start to do some of those images. That's what it takes. Now I'm on fast mode. I'm not on turbo mode. So I don't know what that, turbo mode would be a little bit faster than that. But you get your, here, I'll cut back to this here. Hold on. Let me, so if we cut back to here, when you're thinking about a concept, you just start, you start typing. Now I have a whole lot of, cheats where I have a notes document that everything that produced something useful, I cut and paste into it. So I'm like, oh, that was a good look. That was a thing. But we'll do this, the same thing that I was just talking about. So imagine, let's see, sorry, imagine a Star Wars movie poster in the style
Norman Rockwell
of Wes Anderson.
Oh, okay. What did Norman Rockwell?
And then we'll say, but in this case, we will say AR 9:16 because that'll be more of what we would see, right? A kind of a long poster. Yeah, I'm trying to think of anything else we want to put in there, but we'll just start with that. Did I get that right? I don't think. No, down lowercase.
You mean your one sheet size 9:16, so it's gonna be.
Oh, you know what? What's funny is you can do 9:19, and that is your iPhone, right? So if you want to have an iPhone screen, so let's give that a shot. So here you go. You get this process, and we'll see if we're going. The first one is kind of going fishing. Like, what is it going to give you as you start to let it go? And so it's waiting to start. There we go. See, now you can see it. It's in the same. It's in more of a long poster, but I made it a little longer, which would be I could literally use it as a screen. 9:19 turns out to be the right aspect ratio for your screen.
For Courtney's iPhone.
Sorry,
Wes Anderson
for an iPhone. Yeah.
Wes Anderson is all horizontal stuff, not vertical.
I know, but the posters are still going to be the posters that still end up. Oh my gosh!
Well,
it's
one
really
sheet,
funny.
yeah, it's going to be vertical.
I can already see it. All right. And again, the text will be off, but let's see here. Let's take a look. I mean, look at
a Wookiee wanted picture.
This is so Wes Anderson, though. This is like the Isle of Dogs. Look at these little. I mean, this is a very Wes Anderson. So then, what you can do is you can say, I want to. You can tell it to do a couple different things. So one is we can say, give me more versions of number 3. That's this one over here. I can change things if I want to. I'm going to leave it the way it is right now. And give me a more. So a lot of times what you're doing is you're kind of, you keep on producing ones, versions of those, but I might want a full version of this and a full version of that. The full versions will happen very quickly because I think it's already rendered them. So it pops up here. So here's your the to war, but you can fix that. But you can see how you could very quickly think that you'd believe that was a Wes Anderson. And then they'll pop down here at the bottom. Here's your full res of number 3 here. So you could relatively quickly pull these things out. But if you did this, I mean, people would. You could probably sell people on the idea that was a Wes Anderson production. And then what it does is it gives you a bunch of different versions of it here, so you can decide what where you want to go with it from there. Here's other versions.
Wes the Bus. What is that?
Wes the Bus. Yeah, exactly. What's the bus? Oh, was. Oh, West the bus. Yeah, like it's, it just throws some random text in there for the most part. So, anyway, this is the kind of thing that it'll produce for you really quickly. And that's how that's how it begins. That's how it starts. Next question.
Next question from Paul again in Austin, Texas. How can a traditional artist get Midjourney to adapt to their style and process, or is there a better tool for this? And does any tool look at a set of paintings and learn how to do them?
Go, John.
Yeah, you can give Midjourney styles of Van Gogh, Rembrandt, all that kind of stuff. I think in the long run, Photoshop's going to win this war. Midjourney's just been amazing that they haven't sold out yet, because they could make billions of dollars if they did. Just amazing. And they're all self-funded and they're cash flow positive, which is absolutely amazing. But everybody has been using Photoshop for the past 30 years. And the way you build a composition in layers with masking is a very familiar paradigm for artists. And so they're comfortable in that modality. And the generative fills are not as good as Midjourney, but I think it's an easier way to build a composition.
Next question.
Laura Thompson in Beaumont, Texas asks, does Midjourney have a way to generate alt text tags for the image, or could Chat GPT do it?
I think you could, well, with Midjourney, you could theoretically pump your image back in and have it analyze it, and it would give you a text of everything that was there. A lot of people, when you're following them on Twitter, actually do alt text of what they put in of the image. So Chase, and I can't think of Chase's last name, but he's one of the people that I follow on Twitter. And if you go to the alt text, what it tells you is it'll actually tell you what the prompt was. But it can do those descriptions. Go ahead, John.
The new vision services inside of multiple modalities built into Chat GPT could do this with no sweat.
Go ahead, Jason.
Also, one of the newer accessibility features in Mac OS will actually describe an image to somebody who's visually impaired. I'm not sure how good it is. I haven't really played with it, but all on device, and I would assume decent if they've rolled it out to mainstream.
Go ahead, Paul. Oh, sorry. I meant next question. Sorry.
Paul Wallace from Austin, Texas. Who wins the Bard versus Chat GPT fight of the century?
I think that ChatGPT is winning right now, but I think we're in day one of a big move. So I wouldn't think too hard about it right now. Go ahead, Jason.
Consumers always win when large companies compete.
Yeah, maybe not the artists, but the consumers do. So next question.
Sheetan Flau from Viersvold and Tromsø. The difference between Style 0 and Stylize 3000 is insane, specifically when making illustrations or drawings.
Go, John.
Yeah, I thought Stylize only went to 1,000, but there is a huge difference between 0 to whatever the top range is. I thought it was 1,000. Yeah, there's all these weird switches will be in the interface in 6, which hopefully we'll see before the end of the year.
Next question.
Paul Wallace, Austin, Texas. Can Midjourney be used to create images that can be used to treat mental illness or other health conditions?
I'm sure someone can think of something. I don't know. Next question.
And it's our friend Sheetan Flo from Jørsvold from Tromsø. What new settings are available in the newest version? Stuff like weird, --AR, stylize, and so on.
Yeah, I haven't done the weird one as much, or done it, but weird just kind of lets it loose. Like it's a kind of stylized. Don't worry about being caught into it. AR is the aspect ratio, which we've already shown. Stylize is how far it's going to go down that road. And I think because we're going to cut off a little early here, we'll do this in a lab, but you'll see a lab pop up here. I think that we started doing those and then we haven't done enough of them, so we'll probably do more of those pretty soon. Next question.
Paul Wallace in Austin, Texas, back. Can Midjourney be used to create images that have the same emotional impact as human-created art?
Go, John.
Thanks to Chris Fenwick, I had in my presentation, I have a gallery of generated art from Midjourney, and when you see it on projector, the image is really small. Chris made them all full screen and had them zoom in and out and fade in and out. And I can't tell you that when I show those, I get the oohs and the ahs from the audience. And one of the images I generated looks exactly like the Afghan girl from National Geographic. wasn't inspired by that at all. We were just typing stuff in one day, and it came up, and it looks super close to that image in National Geographic. It's one of the highlights of my presentation.
Go ahead, Chris.
You're welcome, Sean. Here's my thought on art. I think that when you start breaking down what it is that you like about art, one of the things that I like is something that is has a little bit of surprise to it. Not off the wall, but like, oh, I didn't think about that. Oh, that's an interesting angle to go to. And I think that, watching you create the Yugo race car, Alex, is interesting, but also a little frustrating, because you're really shooting in the dark. I mean, you could try, you put in the words, and it gets a little closer and closer. But I think there's something about humanity and that surprise and that awe and that wonder that when you're trying to be purposeful in the way you change somebody's emotion, I don't know that I want a computer to randomly stylize 23, get me there. It's fascinating. And, I'm going to use one of these images in a video I'm editing today. It's fine. But I don't know. I like to be pleasantly surprised by a human's thought process.
Well, and I don't think I definitely don't think that this is a replacement. I think that this is a I think that this is something I use it more for, again, what I would consider disposable images, which are stuff that's in a presentation that I'm never going to pay someone to do these, and so I think that there's definitely so I think that there's a place for it. I still work with artists, and like if you're actually doing professional work and you need something to look a certain way, there's nothing like working with an artist that can draw it. And so the now I think that there's somewhere, and again, I think that all of this stuff is going to give us, and I keep on looking back at things like electronica and electronic music, as well as electronic music is dancing with the machine, right? In the same way that this is dancing with the machine. I set up some stuff and I start plugging things in and I start watching what it does. A lot of times it's not something that's explicit. It is something that I'm listening for what I like out of something that it's doing. And it's not the same as someone playing the guitar. It's not someone playing the trumpet or something like that. And I have an incredible amount of respect. My daughter, is playing. She's in like 4 bands playing the bass, and so she practices like 3 hours a day for different things, and she's getting really good. And but I, as her father, know what it took to get there. And that's a different. And so I don't want to take away from that because it is something different. But I also think that, being able to, there is something about electronica, and there's also something about the resampling culture and using that underneath things. I have something I want to say. I'm going to add music that other people made, so that I can say the thing I say, because I don't have that skill. The skill I have is being able to say it, not be able to play those things, and I think that, and people didn't think that was music, but it's kind of taken over, and it doesn't mean that I don't love sitting down and watching someone on stage playing an incredible piece with a guitar, or a violin or many other things. There's an incredible experience of doing that. I went to see a flamenco presentation like in Novato. They just had it in the city hall. Stunned of humans to exactly what you're talking about, Chris. Humans doing human things. That was just really profound. But I also like the idea that I can throw something together really quickly.
So my fear is, real quickly, is you say it, and you and I agree, this is not a replacement for humans. But my fear is that I believe that the majority of people think that it is.
Well, we used to have people make cups for us, and now we have a machine do that. Like we used to have people bottle stuff. I mean, like there are, but I still love cups that are made by hand. I have quite a few of them. So the thing is that, but I think there are many things that get replaced by some kind of mechanization over time. It doesn't mean that it just means that a lot of us do some of these things as hobbies until we're exceptionally good at it. There's a lot of people that play violin, but only, a very small percentage actually get to do it and get paid for it. Go to Courtney.
Yeah, I think that if you look at their community showcase, there's tons of emotional impact images here, that of this little castle, or look at this screaming transition to werewolf guy,
Right.
or, Starry Night, you can imitate
And again, I
famous
think that
artists, or even this poster from the 80s of a 80s movie with celebrities, like, you almost recognize some of those celebrities, right?
Yeah, and I think, again, I don't think that I have a lot of friends that are great artists, and I don't, they're mostly busy, but the thing is that I think that there's something they bring to it that I don't think it'll take a long time to be brought to by a machine. But I think it's always important for us to know where it's at right now. Go ahead, next question.
Peter Belbin from Houston, Texas wants to know, can Midjourney create scalable output, for example, SVG output, or once you get to a particular image you want, at that point, can high-resolution output then be generated?
Go ahead, John.
Two questions in one here. So they don't support vectors yet, but it's coming. They talk about that. The CEO has talked about vector graphics being integrated into Midjourney. And then as far as scalability goes, you can do what Alex did, is you can pan out right or left, and you can increase the size. And then a lot of people bring this into either Photoshop or use Topaz to increase it out. I've seen wallpaper made out of Midjourney images that come out great.
There is another, I can't remember what it's called. Trace Journey, I think is called Trace Journey. You can take your Midjourney stuff and put it into Trace Journey, and Trace Journey will turn it into SVGs. So that there is a way to make that actually work. Next question.
Neil Avaledo from Boca Raton, Florida. How to prompt to create the image, including the alpha channel?
So the only way to really do that is to do it over a plain white background, or a plain background. Make sure to spell white or plain correctly, but otherwise you get an airplane. But that's the way to do that. And then you're going to have to extract it. It's not rendering it out with alpha channels. Now, when Photoshop does generative AI, it does, but it's not really a true alpha channel because it's kind of integrating it with stuff that's in the background. So it's not. It is. It's got an alpha channel though to it, but it's not clean. Next question.
And it's from Adrian Watkins from Wellington, New Zealand, coming in from QR code. Is there a good collection of prompt examples?
And by the way, that was Adrian also pointed out he used the radio app to do this. So I think he might be the first one. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, so the best thing to do is just to go to the Midjourney Discord channel, and they've got tons. They've got thousands and thousands of examples of the images with the prompt there, so you can get a great example of the pros in there.
Yeah, and there are some. Chase Lean is someone that I follow. It's Chase Lean TJ on Twitter, and he posts a lot of, like, he'll figure something out and then he'll explain what he did with it to make it work. And I follow him and kind of definitely draft off of him a little bit. But as John said, especially in whatever the daily challenges are or other things, you're going to see people experimenting with stuff. And these folks are doing it every single day, and they're thinking about it all the time. And you can definitely learn a lot by going through that. And the other thing I've noticed is I've learned a lot more about I've learned a lot about artistic styles, much more than I ever had before, because I'll go in the style of this, or I wanted to do this, or I'm trying to do that. It's very interesting. Yeah, go next question.
Peter Belbin from Houston, Texas asks, how often are people using Chat GPT to assist in creating Midjourney prompts to provide more of what's intended?
Go ahead, John.
I kind of have my little routine where I go directly into Midjourney and I'll type in a very small description of what I'm looking for. And then I do what Alex did. And he just showed us 15 different iterations of trying to get the cars to come out. And if I get stuck, I go into Chat GPT and have it write out a long prompt. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah, absolutely. You get some crazy stuff when you ask Chat GPT to do it, because it'll write a huge paragraph to make that actually work. Go ahead, Courtney.
Yeah, I was going to ask, John, when you're doing that, do you tell ChatGPT to create a Midjourney prompt specifically? Or do you just say,
Yep, Midjourney prompt.
You say Midjourney prompt. So you prompt it with prompt.
All right, we're going to end a little early, and some of us are going to jump into after hours to take a look at the Zoom Open. So good conversation about Midjourney. I think that was a great little. We just want to keep track of it. I think that even if you don't think that it's a good idea or other things, you need to know where it's at because it's moving very fast. This is incredible. AI in general is moving very quickly. So it's important for us to keep knowing about what it looks like. And again, I think that in the area that a lot of us are using it, it's really effective. And again, I still hire a lot of artists to do things, but it's really useful to be able to concept out things that can be done. So I think it's a pretty interesting process there. Thank you to the panelists for showing up for the first and second hour and having this little conversation. Thank you to all the producers who asked the great questions in the first hour and second hour over the QR code as well as inside of Makana. Thanks to the incredible team that is working on the planning for this. It's working on the execution of these things and working on the coding for all of this. It's an incredible team that puts all this together 7 days a week. We really appreciate everybody's contribution. In the Tlaloc traversal, we traveled, and wait for it, I moved my windows around, 88,000 miles, that's 141,000 kilometers, and that's 698 million bananas for scale. All right, let's go ahead and jump into after hours. Now I'm going to go and just try to figure out how to get into Zoom, and then how to go into after hours. I don't know if I can, I realize I don't, with Zoomtopia, we might have to just watch it because I think we're going to be in Zoom to watch it, which means it'll be hard to get into after hours at the same time.
Oh, finally, a use case for a mix minus.
I know. So I may be able to do this. I'm going to figure this out.
And don't forget, we have a show workshop today again at 12 Pacific, 3 Eastern. Love to have you here.
Yeah, I'm going to use one of my spare computers. Yeah, 12 p.m., 3 p.m. Eastern. It's a great time to learn how to do that. And I'm going to grab one of my spare computers to watch the Zoomtopia. I was going to peel one off. I'm going to, my mail updated and then everything broke again. So I was like, no.
Can't you ask Chat GPT to watch it for you?
Yeah, exactly. All right. See you guys.